Well, I let this wing sit here overnight and let the poly brush on those leading edge tapes cure up. Just come up here getting ready to start smoothing out this stuff, and I gotta say it looks pretty doggone good to me. Anyway, I'm happy with the way that turned out now. It looks better today even than it did last night when I got done, but it's going to take some work with the iron to get it heat formed or get everything smoothed out, but that's what we're going to do now. So I'll get started at it. Well, I got that leading edge looking pretty good. That wasn't too hard. Going across all that metal on the leading edge underneath there is probably easier than going over the fabric in a way. And I put it on pretty smooth and smoothed it out with my hands, got it pretty smooth there, so that wasn't too bad. The part that's a little bit difficult on there is that metal underneath absorbs all the heat, so it takes a lot longer holding the iron on there to get any results out of it, and then you get to be careful that you don't get it on there too long and shrink the fabric. Anyway, that looks pretty doggone good there. Now I'll go down and work on that wingtip bow. Now this isn't done yet here on this leading edge. I'm going to have to turn the wing over and do the bottom part of that tape there because I can't really see it and get it very good like that, but I'll turn it over and get the bottom part of it a little better. Well, that wingtip looks pretty good now. That whole leading edge looks really good. I'm going to have to flip it over to do the bottom side a little bit and check it out and stuff, but so far that looks pretty good. I had to use the rag with some reducer on it to get some of the excess poly brush out of there that was coming out as I would, especially over that wood and on the metal on the leading edge, but it looks really good, so I'm happy with that. I had to turn the iron up real hot to get one little wrinkle out down there where it come around and came off of that wingtip leading edge cover. There was a little bit of a wrinkle there that I had to turn it up to 350 or so to get that to pop up. And real careful that I didn't shrink the tape or anything, but it shrunk everything enough that it popped up that little dimple, so that looks really good. So I gotta wait for my iron to cool off, and then I'll go down this trailing edge, down this false bar, smooth it out, and then we'll flip the wing over and do the other side, and then start working on trimming that out on the outboard aileron rib there where it sticks out, and back there on the butt rib and some of those other spots that need to be trimmed out. I'm happy with it so far. It's looking really good. Now just don't screw something up, we'll be good. Well, that got a little more complicated than I would have liked. Worked on cleaning that finishing tapes up after I turned the wing over. Well, I glued down the one on the false bar there, got it all glued down, and then I started working on cleaning this side of the wingtip bow and the leading edge tape. But there was just too much poly brush on stuff. It was just gobbed up where it ran around from the top side when I was working on it down here to the bottom side. And it was just pretty much a mess. Wound up taking a couple rags with some reducer in it and wiping it all down, especially around this wingtip bow and then on down the bottom side of that leading edge. Then I took the iron and smoothed out the leading edge there from this outboard aileron rib in towards the butt rib, got it taken care of. And I got that joggle down there between the aileron false bars and the flat false bar. There's a little joggle there. I got that finished up. And I started putting the tapes in and cleaning those up down there around the butt rib, but I'm not done with that yet. I was thinking I was going to get the aft end of the outboard aileron rib cleaned up, but once I got to looking at this tape where it came around here on this wingtip bow, I wasn't really happy with the way that looked. Now that was a 4-inch bias tape that went around there, and I had it going almost 2 inches on the top side of it there. So by the time I pulled it and stretched it to get around that bow, there really wasn't any of the tape on this side, on the bottom side of the wing. The edge of it was right up against the bow, or maybe even just down a little bit below it. Where those two diagonals come down there in the middle, I had those trimmed off flush with the bow while those were exposed. So anyway, I didn't like that, the way that was. I contemplated some different things to do on it. I didn't want to take that tape off of there and do it over again. But I do happen to have a roll of 2-inch bias tape, and I have a roll of 3-inch bias tape. So I looked at either one of those, and the 2-inch bias tape, I can make it fit. I looked at the 3-inch. I didn't really like the way it fit on there. It was a little bit too big. So I'm putting the 2-inch bias tape on there. I made a mark around there about 1 inch in from the edge of that bow, the wooden part of the bow, and so the tape is going on that, and it's going about halfway down the bow here on the outside edge. Well, that's not ideal. It would have been better if I'd have put that 2-inch tape on before I put the 4-inch tape over it, so the 4-inch tape would have overlapped it. But this is going to work, and it's going to clean that wingtip bow up quite a bit. I didn't want to leave that the way it was. It not only looked bad, but it also left a single layer of fabric over that edge of that wingtip bow. I've been working on the butt rib down there, getting the trim tapes and stuff around it. Got a little bit more to do to work on it. It takes more on there than just gluing it up, because you have to fit those in there. There's curves and stuff on that, and kind of got to heat shrink around those corners and anyway fit it around there. So I've got, I guess it would be the tape on the top side of the inboard rib glued down now and finished up. And I've got a little bit more to do on the tape on the bottom side, because I've got it run around the leading edge there to protect that leading edge, to cover over that leading edge finishing tape. Anyway, I was hoping I would get this all done today and get that fuel tank put in there so I could start putting some grommets and stuff, doilies or whatever I want to call them, some doublers on the inboard rib there where the fuel tank and all the other things are going to come through that. And then once I do that, then I'd be ready to start spraying finish coats on this thing. But it's not going to get finished tonight. It's getting late now. It's 9 o'clock. I'm going to get this tape put on there, and then I've got to wait until the polybrush cures up on it before I can do any more. And I've kind of got to wait for the polybrush to cure up down there on that butt rib before I can do any more with it. If I waited on that, it'd be midnight before I could do anything more with that stuff, so I'm not going to finish tonight. I'll get her done tomorrow after get my wife home from the airport. Well, that's enough for tonight. I got that pretty well around there. I'm pretty happy with the way that's turning out. I put some polybrush in the tag end of that, on the end of that, so I can trim that up nice and neat. But that's going to have to set up before I can cut that. I think I'm going to finish up for tonight. I just went down that false bar and put a little bit more polybrush on that folded over section that I did, and some more on the tapes that I've taped down so far on this outboard aileron rib, where it sticks out there and down there on the inboard rib. So that's enough for tonight. We'll let this all set up now and finish this up tomorrow. That will finish up the finishing tape and stuff on it, and then I'll put the fuel tank in it and start figuring out where I'm going to put all of the stuff for the fuel tank. Anyway, that's it. That's enough for tonight. Good night, everybody.